Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you do.
Good morning.
Yeah, and a bright or a dark good morning to you. I got up real early today, real early, like 1 a.m., laid in bed till close to 3. The cat was starting to put out a fur ball. He's talking to me now from below. Yeah, it was a pretty crazy morning. Just got the notification, YouTube. Okay, we are live. Anyway, a little bit of explanation for this show. Someone was on and then someone left. I'm back on Facebook. This video primarily, though, we're welcome to the morning show. The morning show with Tony C. Tony Caravan. Also broadcasting from.
So you found us.
What is it trying to tell us?
No strings, no catch. You own everything.
Now stay tuned to Rock Flux.
Rock Flux is, for those who are not familiar, is the channel, my YouTube channel. So that's how you would get to this, even though I have a Tony Caravan channel. The manner in which you are able to mix and match channels and cross connect them is highly, it's a hassle. And I will probably in the future do some kind of simulcasting with Facebook. However, that requires not using Safari. I use a Mac computer. For those new to this show, the beginning of this show always deals with kind of taking care of, housekeeping business. So I need to explain some things because today is a little bit different show than normal for those who've been following this for the past year or so even. So what's happening is, I think I mentioned several shows back that I wasn't into this VPN thing or worrying about privacy. And even, after having gotten I guess about a month or two ago, I got an email from Google that actually showed me every place that I had been over the past decade, more than a decade. Like literally the addresses, and when I told a couple of people about that, I said, did you ever get one of those things? I opted out of that or blah, blah, blah. And, and it was really, really quite surprising. And considering that over that time, I had gone from changing my iPhone. I still have an iPhone, but I got rid of my Verizon cell phone service. And while this will be repetitive for some people, I'll make it very brief. I ended up going just with what they call a voice over IP or a magic jack is a colloquial. You might be familiar with that. Meaning I pay like $40 a year instead of whatever what I was paying, like close to $90 a month. And the idea is that it's an app on my iPhone that basically is Wi-Fi based. And as Wi-Fi became more ubiquitous, and as I bought a house and I became more just living in my house, and the places I would go, I would have Wi-Fi. I no longer felt the need for that. Now, I also have an Android phone that has a cell service, which was something that I basically got for free. And that had to do with retiring and cutting my cost way down. It's a long story. Be that as it may. the idea is with and having changed, like I even still have my old uh iPhone, which I occasionally still use um to play music or something. The point I'm trying to make in this rather lengthy speech is that they're following you no matter what device you use. Uh, you know, it could be an old iPhone. Uh, I took my chip out of it, out of that. If you ever look at you know, like an ATM card or a credit card, and you notice you have to slide it in now, and that chip that's in that is exactly the same as the thing that's in your phone. And so you're being tracked you're being tracked no matter what you do. And whether you use an ATM card, whether you have an old iPhone, a new Android phone, whatever it is, and Google's keeping all of this data, and so is Apple. Apple claims that they are privacy advocates, and Facebook, of course, the same way. And I originally got off of Facebook because my idea with Facebook was this idea of privacy, that these companies were sharing your data and that they were just basically making a living on defining the you as a demographic profile and collecting data. Now, like many other things in my life that's changed over the past decade or so, which I was talked about yesterday in yesterday's program about when I was getting into this book, one of my older books from about 6 years ago, and I was talking about how my mind, I just changed my mind about a lot of things because you grow if you're an open-minded person. Well, I know my idea with this Google, getting this email from Google a month ago, and I recently just got one like a couple of weeks ago or last week. And I guess they send these things out once a month now or something like that. And again, you can opt out of it if you want to. But I rather know, I rather see what kind of data they're collecting on me because it's interesting. Because if you opt out, they're going to still collect that data, right? Everything's being stored in the cloud. So my original reason for getting off of Facebook is no longer really. It just doesn't really make sense. So
Brilliant!
My thought is like, I'll go back and I'll expand the morning show, which is gaining in popularity. It's not very popular on YouTube, but I have it on some of these other social media program, various platforms. And on some of those, I'm getting, I'm starting to get like over 1,000 viewers on this, that, the other. And so all, in the aggregate, the show's starting to gain some popularity. So I thought I'd get back on Facebook, and this will be a linked video, assuming they let me link it. And then eventually I may try to simulcast live on Facebook as I'm doing this. This is a live broadcast. So, when I'm, drinking my coffee, in this case, it's a caffeinated, carbonated beverage. And I take the old Louis Armstrong handkerchief out and clean my mustache. I'm not editing this out. This is 100% live. Like I said, I'm trying to deliver the truth. It's the same with what I did with my music and the beat poetry stuff. It's like I recorded every track. It's multi-tracked, but every track is just recorded live. And for the most part, it's usually just one pass. And I mean, very rarely have I gone back. So, I mean, I'll record, the beat. I'll record, I'll lay down a rhythm guitar. I might lay a lead guitar over it if it's there, or a bass, and then I'll do the vocal track. And if I kind of screw up on the lyric, or if something in it isn't perfect, I'm not going back and tweaking it, and doing that. Because the idea is, my idea is that there's so much, everything's so slick today that I wanted to be authentic. And the same is with these various books. Those who haven't been following me for a long time, you can see back here slightly a book called Codex. That's my latest book. And in that book, it's like it's a flow of consciousness. The second half of that book, and the idea is, that's my 10th book, and I will probably do a book later this year. I mean, my primary focus right now, sorry for hitting the mic, is the garden, is getting my garden ready. And I'll be bringing, I'll be dealing with that a lot in some of these future shows, because it's a matter of, food shortages and climate things that are surprising, might be surprising to some people, but the idea that, we may be experiencing some cooler weather as opposed to some of the things we're hearing about warmer weather. And in any event, no matter what, I see we're in a turbulent time, and with everything that's going on in this country, around the world, the idea of being a little bit more detached from what I call the corporatocracy, and what I mean by the corporatocracy is that governments, and excuse me, it's 4:48 a.m. when I'm doing this video, and I've been up. I just had to I just spent about an hour, like, kind of upping my Facebook page, which I've been out of for I don't know how many years, pretty long time. So bear with me. I'm half awake, but I wanted to do this video, and we're going to go through it, and I'm sure it's going to be similar to just about every other morning show, just that there's a little extra explanation here at the outset. So, but what I mean for those new to this, when I say the corporatocracy, is that governments have become obsolete. And so the corporatocracy is the Davos set. When you hear about the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset and all these, buzzwords and references to this, that, the other, what it really is, and what I'm trying to get across, and I believe I coined the phrase or the word corporatocracy, though someone else may claim that they have. I don't really care about that, and it doesn't bother me. But the idea is that I'm no longer a political person, is what I'm trying to get at. And if you look at my earlier books and even earlier posts when I used to be on Facebook, and that's why I'm directing some of this at Facebook, since I will be posting this video on Facebook after this is done, or a link to it. And assuming that that's something that Facebook allows you to do, even though they have their own live video thing now, I don't know. We'll find out. But one way or another, there'll be a link to this video on my Facebook page, the Tony Caravan page. And the idea is that, so how did I change? Why did I change? And why am I back on Facebook? Why don't I care about privacy when it comes to Google collecting all this data and saying you were at, 139 such and such street, on this date. And you did this and you did that. And they know it's because, and I think I try to get across to people in general, is that, does it really matter? When I first, many years ago, and it might have even been 20 years ago, I remember I showed someone a satellite picture of their neighborhood, their house. And I said, "There's your house," you know. And they were in almost disbelief. But I was just got that from publicly, available satellite things. You mess around with the things enough and you could find and hone in, And Google Earth and different things like that now have gotten very good. And now it's just commonplace. But 20 years ago, people they were like, they couldn't believe it, that kind of thing. And so what I'm getting at is that this has been going on for so long now. The amount of data that's collected about you, the demographic profiles that are available for you, that are used by primarily to market things to you. I mean, that's the whole thing. The original idea wasn't so nefarious as it was just downright marketing. And of course, once the government got wind of this, they looked at, you take NSA and all the alphabet agencies collecting data. They looked at this and said, hey, these guys, meaning big tech, they've got more information than we have. And they've got it on everybody, practically everybody. Whereas we only have it on such and such individuals. And the detail of the data that they're collecting is far beyond is stuff that we'd only do if we've got got a FISA warrant or something. So what I'm saying is, to make a long story longer, is that I'm my attitude towards privacy is that why bother? And why opt out? And that's why I'm back. I decided, what, the heck with it. I'll just be on Facebook. Now, I'm not a Facebook person. And if somebody's expecting me to be, showing you what I ate, the other day or something, it's like, no, that's not my scene. Probably it'll be mainly these videos. The morning show. And by the way, the morning show mugs are available at TonyCaravanLive.com. But my idea right now is that I just want to get as many people aware that everything is wrong, which is basically a shirt. If you saw yesterday's show, the most comfortable shirt in the world, but one of my favorite phrases. You don't know what you don't know. When you think about that for a second. You don't know what you don't know. Those who are new to this. So, and I'll get into things like this.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
And we'll cover all the topics that are normally, not covered by the mainstream media, the legacy media, what I call the car salesman. And the idea, what I mean by car salesman, is that if you turn on the morning news right now, or I guess they start their shows around 5 a.m., you're going to see, what are you going to see on there? You're going to see ads from a local car dealership. And so the news readers on television, and I've done this before, and I did this 3 days in a row. I have so much stuff. Today's garbage day, so I better do this one last time because this is going to just disappear go out with today's trash. When you get a newspaper, I don't subscribe to the newspaper, but you know how they send you these like abbreviated things because they just want to get ads out to you. But what do you get in the newspaper? What's the biggest ads in the newspaper? Cars. Right? So what I'm trying to say is that all of this, people who are caught up in the cult of personality of political people who are in the idea that politics has become pop culture now. I don't care about politics anymore. I don't care about anything like that. Because to me, politics is content, all right, for used car salesmen, right? It's like that line, I've said this before. It's like these news readers are and politicians, they're messengers for grocery store clerks, right? That's that line from Apocalypse Now. Messengers for grocery store clerks, you know. And, so if they're not selling cars, they're selling pharmaceuticals. And as I say every day, and I'm going to repeat this every day, and if it's not a pharmaceutical, some kind of drug, then it's an ad from a law firm saying that a drug that was advertised a year or so ago, it's like, if you took this drug, contact the law firm of. And so, but I mean, still, they're used car salesmen. They know everything about you. They're collecting data left and right to pretend that you are buying some VPN. I see all these YouTubers and people trying to promote this kind of stuff. It's like, you're not protecting yourself from anybody. They know everything about you. Everything about you. They know where you go, what you bought, right? They know all who you're related to. They know who you text. They know who you talk to. All right. They know everything in such detail that your own family, spouses, even if you were seeing a shrink for 20 years, wouldn't know in as much detail as they have stored on you, your profiles, in these vast data centers located all over the world, which they call the cloud, so to speak. So I just wanted to get through that. It took me about 20 minutes, but saying that's why I'm back. So for my Facebook friends and people on other platforms, that's why I am doing this, because I think the message is important and it needs to get out there, and I need the broadest possible audience that I can get. And because I see there are certain things that I'm talking about that I've noticed over particularly the past several months, that I don't see anybody else really talking about. And the type of things that I'm promoting, which I do promote things, are the type of things that people aren't promoting. And to get this out of the way, as I say in most shows, I'm not monetized. So I'm not making the purpose of this isn't to make any money. I'm retired now. I basically reduced my cost of living so low that I do not need, and I grow my food in my, I grow a lot of food in my backyard, a ridiculous amount, that I don't need. And it's not like I have money, watch my previous show, if not yesterday's morning show, the one prior to that, where I get into numbers. And, but just to give you an idea, my taxes, mortgage, and insurance are $200 a month. Okay. To give you the idea of how and I own this, and I own this house. I bought this house. So that's where I've taken it. And my idea is to decouple yourself, to limit your exposure, as they say in the financial industry, as much as possible from this corporatocracy. Because this is the new, the new dynamic. All right. The new paradigm, if you want to say it, going forward. And once we get beyond September, as the people who are collecting unemployment, who are near full salary or just a little bit below, some are a little above. And once people go, just waste their $1,400 that they got. But as we approach and get beyond the summer, things are going to be, we're going to see some drastic changes going on in society. Like, I call this the former United States of America. I see the U.S. now as a series of various states. Like when you travel to Europe and they say, "Yo, you're from the States," and I see us as a geographic location. The idea. Uh, I don't mean to constantly be using the word as I said before, or to be repetitive, but let's face it, we're human beings. We're not that complicated. We're really not. Life isn't that complicated. There are people out there that want to make life seem complicated because that gives them the ability that you are somehow dependent upon them, and that gives them a level of control. I'm pouring myself some more. It's like a takeoff of Dr. Pepper or something, but it's not. It's some Walmart brand, but it's got caffeine in it. Some mornings I do coffee thing, but when I get up this early, it's like whatever I got. Cold caffeine sometimes works better than hot coffee. And so I see hard times ahead for a lot of people. I mean, there's also that, but that doesn't mean that your life has to be less than fun and your quality of life has to shrink. It's like when I reduced my cost of living, down to like a quarter of what I was paying before, because I decided, hey, I'm getting older. I don't want to have to, I I want to be comfortable and I don't want to have to worry about financial matters or things like that. Uh, it was a conscious decision, and but my life became better. Actually, my quality of life is improved right now. In fact, I kind of have a neighbor that it's a little bit crazy, that I had to build a wall up, a little higher wall, so I don't to avoid contacting with a neighbor. You hate to have to do something like that, but it's a Tony Caravan live show. We're going to talk about me and everything else. Hopefully this person will chill out, because my backyard is my refuge. That is my, I look forward to I spend 7 months, 8 months out of the year pretty much outside. And that's how I say my quality of life has increased greatly. Because I used to be like everybody else, living in some kind of rented apartment or whatever, in a cubicle, basically indoors, doing something. It's like people who go to work, they go from one, they live in some kind of cubicle, overpriced cubicle apartment. Then they get in their cubicle car to commute to this office building where they get in this elevator and they, sit and work in an office that's another cubicle, right? And then they hope on the weekend they could, have a little bit of outdoor freedom. It's no way to live your life. And I got out of that about 5-6 years ago when I bought this house. And, yeah. So my cost went way down, but my quality of life, went up. And I think that's the takeaway, and that's what these morning shows are really all about. And they'll become more and more detailed and informative, as time goes by, when I could actually demonstrate and not just talk about it. Now, in the past couple videos, I've talked about these, some of these devices that that I push. And again, none of this stuff I'm doing is for financial gain, because I have no interest in these companies. I don't, like I said, I'm not getting monetized, for clicks or views. I'm demonetized for life on YouTube. So, and as far as my books and my music is concerned, I've got a lot of beat poetry tracks out there. Some of them are good. Some of them, some of the early stuff was just experimental, and it sucks. It's not even that good. But the later stuff is actually it's good, and I keep it in my own playlist. But even when people play that on Spotify, or wherever, you only get royalty wise. I only get a couple of cents on it. So that I just want to put that out front for new people watching this, that that's not what this is about. And I have these, I make my own shirts, like here's a Rock Flux shirt, and like I say, these things you see, it's dark over there now, but I mean, these other various shirts, I think do I have one over here? No, I don't know what I did with that other one, but no, it's just stuff I do because it's thought provoking, and I'm trying to get people to think, and not just you, but for you to get, some of these wearables, right? That you could walk around with, and people will, and people look at that like, what is that? Like, what do you mean? Everything is wrong. Or like I said, this one, you got to watch yesterday, because I was just raving how comfortable it is. You don't know what you don't know. And that just drives people crazy. Like, what are you saying? It's hard to, do things backwards. And then, as I always talk about,
counties, including the city of Johnstown. Today, sunny. Highs in the upper 50s. Southeast winds.
Anyway, these are some of the things that I push. And these, like getting yourself a NOAA weather radio that's an AM FM radio that's chargeable by solar power, has a reading light. There's a solar. If you see over here, you can see a solar reading light, flashlight. You can crank it. But the coolest thing about this one, I show this a couple of times, is if I can angle it just right at the light, there are 2 USB ports there. So what you can do with this is, in an emergency, you can actually emergency charge your cell phone from something like this. So if you were like, this is tornado season, hurricane season, even winter storm seasons, or like they had down in Texas not so long ago. People who might have had something like this, they would have known what was going on. They would have had this ability to, this chargeable light, all right, ridiculous light. They would have had constant NOAA weather. They could listen to local radio. They could charge this on solar. And solar is not bright light. You could charge in the wintertime, as long as you just charge with light. Or you can hand crank a thing like this to get it up to where you want it to be. And this thing is showing me that I'm still at 75% power. And the other day, and that's a small device, and I only paid like $35 for that. And this thing over here, on here, we used this the other day, and that's still at 92% power. And you could actually plug something into that. So that's something like this, which is fairly lightweight. And it's on my Great Solar Stuff site. You could plug your laptop into there. You could use your one of the things I noticed when I was watching yesterday's video back. I always watch these back. I was like struggling, my mind is going sometimes, I think. I couldn't think of the word hotspot, but you can use your cell phone as a hotspot. So if you have a device like that, you can literally plug in your laptop, plug in your cell phone, have that as a hotspot, and the power's out, you can plug in a lamp, a fan, or whatever. If you get one of the this is a 200 watter. You could buy a 500 watter. You can get 1,000 watter. You just pay a little more money you pay for the wattage. But you literally can, and then you can hook this up to a solar, like a $200 solar panel or something like that, and it'll just keep charging. And you can have it. It also comes with an AC adapter and a car adapter. So there's a million ways to charge it. So indefinitely over the course of weeks, if you were in a grid down situation, having a device like that, everyone else is going to be like panicking, and you're basically you're not having a problem at all. I picked up a ceramic heater that's only about a 250 watt ceramic heater. So if you had one of the 1,000 watt versions of that, you could actually run a small heater. And I was going to bring it out today, but I got up so early because it was really on my mind. Like I said, I'm just going to talk this out. I had this neighbor that, I mean, how some people are just wacky. And but that doesn't really bother me that much. And I my personality is that I'm an easygoing person for the most part. I mean, I'll get into some rants every now and then, but I mean, in my interactions with people, I'm not, you know, you know, I'm more helpful. I helped. I used to mow this older woman. She's an older woman. I used to mow her lawn. I didn't, for free for last couple of years. I fixed. Her front of her house was a mess, and I built a retaining wall out of cinder blocks for her. I didn't charge her labor for it or anything like that. She's bent over, and so I reinforced a railing in her back and her front for her. Man, I literally went out of my way to help, do the neighborly thing. But she started to get over time. She was getting nosier and nosier and more in my business. And she also has a foul mouth that in this day and age is not that I'm, I mean, because I yeah, I could have a fairly foul mouth at times too. But, put it this way, there were certain words that she would, speak over my fence at me like I'm just trying to lay down on my lounge chair after I work in my garden and listening to some music and chill out and get a suntan in my yard. Okay, to me, that's paradise. Like I say, take a vacation in your own backyard. If you've got a south-facing lawn, you lay down on a lounge chair, you close your eyes. You could be in Cancun. You could be anywhere you want to. I lived in Malibu. I could be taken back to Malibu. I'm listening to some music coming out. I got 2 outdoor speakers. But I get this crazy person, using like the N word loud, where like a couple of houses down, the people that take offense to that kind of thing. And anyway, she started getting nosy in my business and all this stuff, and kind of like making my paradise backyard not so paradise. So I had a spot where she used to like get over, like be like leaning over this fence and nosing in on me and like, making all these weird pronouncements about, her problems and using this, all these words and stuff. So I just covered it over. And so now she's like freaking out on that too. So I've got to deal with that. I don't know. The things you got to deal with in life. So I guess because I'm the type of person that, I'm an, I empathize, and I have a conscience, and things bother me in certain regards, that it just was, weighed on my mind. So I didn't have a good night's sleep last night because yesterday there was an encounter where she was like, "Take that thing off your, you got that thing is connected to my fence. Take it off, or I'm going to call a cop." That kind of stuff. I mean, we're really, really low life type of thing. So I'm hoping this thing doesn't turn into a situation where I'm stressed out and she ruins my paradise because I'm not moving, man. I got this great place set up. I mean, the only problem I have is a little bit of a leaky roof. But considering, like I said, that I'm only paying $200 for taxes, mortgages, and insurance, and I only owe, I think I only have about 8 or 9 years left on this house until it's even paid off. So I'm doing okay. So hopefully that doesn't turn into some kind of thing. Anyway, that's the background story. And for those, for people who are new to the channel, I always get into a little bit of personal stuff, and then I also get into this idea that I have about the corporatocracy, and I do talk about my books and encourage you to listen to my music. It doesn't cost you anything to listen to it on Spotify or YouTube. And just I'm just sharing this stuff. It's like, I get this idea, service to others instead of service to self. That's like my motto, the law of one, I think they call it on, in the internet world. But other than that, it's a great setup. I've been doing this for a while. It's not an ideal setup, YouTube Live. And I don't know. I tried to use Facebook Live this morning. I was going to test it out live, but it didn't work with my browser, Safari browser. But it would probably work with this Chrome browser, because YouTube Live doesn't work with Safari either. I don't know what Apple's game is. My feeling is that maybe Apple, because they have FaceTime, or maybe they've got something in the pipeline that they're going to introduce that's going to come up and and take, they're always thinking about something, and they're going to take the place of that. But
let's get this show on the road.
All right. So what's today's topic? What are we going to talk about today? Now that we got that out of the way. I consistently get more and more annoyed. Now that I got rid of my television. I don't have, I had DirecTV, as I said before, and I got rid of it. I got tired of the politics of it all. I don't care about either. I don't care about politicians. I know there are some politicians out there that are probably true and sincere, but I haven't seen anything. As you get older in life, I haven't seen anything change. I see one politician comes in for 4 or 8 years, or senator for 6 years, whatever. And then another one comes in and basically more or less erases everything that one did. And it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's just one big game. And the people themselves are the ones that don't benefit by it at all. And when there are opportunities, like for example, I'm happy to get that $1,400. Especially for me with my garden, there's I've got a lot of raised beds, which I will be showing next month as the weather gets a little bit better. I might do a production video. See, the problem with live is it's hard for me to take this setup out and do this live in my backyard. It has to do with the specific browser, um, my Wi-Fi setup. There's just a lot of factors. It's a little noisier out there, and like I say, man, crazy neighbor. So, we'll have to see how all that goes. But either way, at some point, probably next month, when we get consistent weather. This right now in the mid-Atlantic states where I am, the it's looking like this whole week is going to be nice, like really nice. In fact, I have so many different I have different mice here. I mean, even though right now it's claiming that the temperature is 37 degrees, it's going to get up to 63 today, 61 tomorrow, 64 Wednesday, 72 on Thursday, and 66 on Friday. And it's not until Friday night that the weather gets back down into below 40 in the overnight. So I plan on I actually already put in some cold, some spring colder weather crops. So I've got my potatoes in the ground. I put some radishes in, things like cilantro, anything. I'm going to put carrots in either today or tomorrow. And then you just cover them with like burlap or something like that. I mean, if for some reason a couple weeks from now we get a crazy frost or a snow, I'll just lay some cardboard over top of the whole area. And I also have some of these like plastic containers I use when I grow indoors. Because in the wintertime I do my seedlings starts inside, and you use a heat mat and usually put a plastic, I don't know what you would call it. It's just like the thing over top. It's a cover, plastic cover, and that retains the heat. And you can use those outside on the ground too, because the idea when you get like a frost, I mean, unless there would be some polar vortex where it got down to like 0 or something Fahrenheit, that'd be scary. But even that last year in May, I waited till May 1st to put my tomatoes and peppers and things like that. You just can't put out until you don't want to put out until after the last frost. But last year I waited till like May 1st, and it was hard, when you're into the gardening type of thing, when you got that bug, it's just like you just itching to get, you just want that. And my tomatoes, I'm growing in this little back porch closet type thing where I have some grow lights and stuff. And the tomatoes were just vining and like taking over the whole space. I didn't even know how the heck I was going to get them out. So finally I waited and I was patient enough. And May 1st, I put them out. And wouldn't you know it, about a week later, we had a frost. And it killed off those tomato plants that I had put in. And fortunately, there's a nursery that grows, grows seedlings, and they have, I had pretty good luck with that place before I was doing my own growing from seed. I have 2 apple trees in my backyard right now. One of them, I think I might get apples this fall from, that I planted from a seed that I actually ate the apple. And the thing's like 7, 8 feet tall now, and it's starting to get wide and branching out. So if not this year, next year I'll have apples, and it will literally be an apple from a seed that I ate the apple. I mean, isn't that crazy? And I have another one next to it that's like a year behind it. You really need to have, for pollination and things like that, it's good to have at least a couple fruit trees. I can't wait for that. But yeah, so my tomato plants just froze. They were just, I'm like, oh, how disappointing. So fortunately, so I trimmed them down, but I didn't take them out, take the roots out. All right. They were Roma tomato plants, by the way. And for some reason, I don't know why, but just for the sake of it, I just clipped them right down to the bottom. And then I went to the nursery and I bought some, you could buy like it's like a 6-pack thing with these tomato starts in it. They're already up to about maybe that tall. And so I planted like 6 tomato plants and some stuff like that. The pepper plants I grew from seed, and I didn't put them out right away because I have this little mini greenhouse in the backyard. I call it the TARDIS. It's about the size of it. And so they stayed in there. They didn't freeze. But the craziest thing about this whole thing is the reason I'm babbling about this is that in about 3 or 4 weeks later, even though they froze, those tomato plants, those roots started growing. And I actually got Roma tomatoes from those 2 plants. Now, not a lot, just like, maybe, I don't know, less than a dozen between the 2 plants. But they were, hey, you take a seed this big, you put it, you grow it and you get yourself, and it's food. And anybody will tell you is nothing better than a homegrown tomato. I had so many peppers last year that I still have them in mason jars. I have them in the refrigerator. I put some in vinegar. I put some in tried a brine thing. I tried that with salt and stuff. And I make salsas. So my peppers last year round. And obviously I grew potatoes and carrots. And I just ended up with the heck of a lot of it. On my Instagram page, if you go to my Instagram page, and I'll add a link to that, you can find, progression of the garden. That's what I use Instagram for. Like I say, I'm not a social media person. I used to, it's like even when I was on Twitter, you change. It's, I don't know how else to describe it and to say that, there's some people you haven't seen in many, many years, for example. And they're like the same person, right? It's exactly the same person. And, I traveled all over the world and I traveled all over this country and I had so many jobs, like so many different things I did. New York, DC, Philly, LA, everywhere, and, you meet so many people. Well, I lived in Florida for a while, everywhere, and when you're that kind of person, you just, you grow whether you like it or not, because you're exposed to thousands of people and you make friendships because say you get a job, you go and you work in Washington and you just work there for a couple of years, or you go to New York and you're working there for a couple of years. But, you just don't waste any time. Like, building friendships is like one of the hardest things in the world, finding friends, because, it's like a relationship. In any kind of relationship is, it takes, it takes time. It's an effort and it's a learning experience. And sometimes it takes a while to learn, about a person, right? But what I found because I was a traveler and I started as a young guy, I was working summer jobs in Wildwood, when I was 18. And like I say, the drinking age was 18 back then too. And so, you like just you don't have time for all the nonsense or the game playing. And so when you encounter another person like you, right? Like I just got a job in New York. There's other people there that are, have just gotten a job, starting a job there, or this, that, the other. You kind of skip all the nonsense, and you start to get a certain radar, you know, about people. And the more you travel and the more you do that, like the more you realize. Like I used to say years ago, I used to say there's only like 16 different human beings, you know, personality types. And I'm not talking about something I read in some psychology book or human behavior, studies or anything weird like that. No, just that was, it was just, it's kind of off the cuff, but in a sense, I mean it, and I'm not going to spend this entire video, though it might be, at some point. I do these things every morning, so it's quite possible that we might have a morning show where we actually define the various, personality types of people that there are. But you know what I'm talking about. And so, you know, but then what about yourself? And what I found is that, like I started saying when I began this, that when I wrote, when I take a book, like I was using this book in yesterday's video that I wrote in 2015. And it's basically a collection of essays, and I put lyrics to my songs and then different stuff. My first couple books were a little autobiographical, and now it's more into, the last book, the one that I've got back here, if I can reach it. It's hard reaching everything you see when you're doing a live video. If you've ever done this, it's backwards. All right. So that's why when sometimes I'll point my thumb, I want to point at something, and you see it's like, why aren't you pointing right? Why does it take you a while to point there? It's because your eyes, what you're seeing on the video is reverse. Right? But like this was my latest book. This is the one that it's just been out of several months. And I call it, it's an adventure for your mind. All right. An idea, flow of consciousness, the hard problem of consciousness. And so when you take a book like something like this that I wrote maybe 5 to 6 years ago, or some books that I have, like I say, I'm having a hard time reaching. Let's just grab a few of these. I was working in the garden yesterday, and it was so dry lately. Your skin gets cracked, and it's like you hurt. But I've got like books that go back to like DC, the nonconformist. But one of the most ridiculous books I ever wrote was this. This was the handbook for the upheaval. And this is like living in feudal America with climate change, endless wars. And if you read this book and my ridiculous pronouncements on the back, the most important issues of the day that remain hidden behind, But this book was written in 2013. Okay. My mind has changed so much that, there's people I even like, I think in the back of this book or somewhere in here where I actually talk about people who are inspirational to me, that when I was going on Facebook today to reset up my, excuse me. Sorry about that. I dropped my manual blood pressure, um, heart rate monitor, whichever one should have. For those of you on Facebook and stuff like that, 2019 wasn't exactly a great year for me. Leading into 2020, I ended up having, and just to give you an update, I'm doing fine now, knock on wood. But I had two major operations. I had a kidney operation, which is scary to begin with. Got through it. Luckily, I had a Johns Hopkins doctor. And I also had and so after that I thought, oh, I'm fine now, this is great, finally get rid of this. And then they came to me and said, hey, you got prostate cancer. And your jaw drops, like, what? And so it's like, do you want radiation, or make a decision, or a radical prostatectomy? Yeah, I know people don't want to hear this kind of stuff, but I had this surgeon who did this kidney thing, and it's like everything happened at once. It was crazy. It was like 6 to 8 months of my life, starting in 2019, just to the beginning of 2020 to last year. That's when I had the radical prostatectomy, it's called. And they got it out, and every 3 months you go, you get a PSA, and luckily, it's, like I say, knock on wood, I've had zeros. So my next test isn't until now. Then they put you on a 6 months. Every 6 months they'll check you. My next one's like in July, and I'm hoping that I remain so-called cancer free. But I had these minor procedures before that, and that's how they discovered the original kidney problem. And then ultimately, after the kidney problem, because of the way they had to go in and go through and do all this stuff, then they discovered that, and it was a nightmare. So you rethink your life, when you have those experiences. And and then 10 years prior, I had like a little heart AFib type of thing like that too, and I got through that. So it's amazing, you just go through, you're invincible, you go from being, the drinking, smoking, and all that kind of stuff to people telling you might die. But yeah, I made it through that. I just don't drink as much anymore, and I quit smoking cigarettes 20 years ago or close to it. But I still have a cigar when I'm having some beers, and I'll do that till the day I die. If they told, somebody said, oh, you can't have any, I just don't. It's like I used to drink every day. I used to drink after work all the time. But what I'm trying to get at is that, and this is a personal thing, it's not about books. Okay. I'm using the books as an example. If you go to the one in the background, the handbook, so to speak, and then look at this codex, which is my latest one, it's like night and day. All right. Because like I say, predominantly the way the earlier books were set up were, the first couple books were like some short stories, screenplays, and different things like that, autobiographical stuff, essays, and maybe some, I think I started to get into the, the songwriting thing. I mean, I used to write songs when I was a kid and stuff, but I mean, seriously, then I was recording them and, basically going through the whole process of, mastering them, getting them registered with BMI, and, and the stuff's out there, and I had a couple songs hit some, got some airplay in like New York and LA. I made, a couple of, some minor royalties on one or two tracks. But, so the books became this thing, an annual thing that I would just write. I would include the songs I wrote that year, the lyrics to the songs. I was doing a lot of essay writing, a lot of online essay writing. And so it would be those essays, and then I would take them and expand the essays. And, and then my my opinions on political issues, social issues, and stuff like that. And it was interesting to see how I changed uh, over the years. And I was just getting back, like I say, you encounter somebody you haven't seen in a long time, and they're like the same person. They want to talk the same thing. It's the same old nonsense. And it's like, for me, it's like night and day, completely night and day. And then you throw in that health thing and then your natural aging process. And it's like, you're like, it's like I mean, I'm still the same goofy guy. I still like the same fun loving stuff. I still play guitar. I still drink, like to, drink beer, listen to loud music, and, puff on a cigar and laugh about stuff. Watch science fiction, Marvel comics. Like, in my biggest, I think that, Stan Lee dying last year was like, was a major tragedy, because I think Marvel Comics was way better than DC Comics. And, when Netflix, decided to no longer make, some of those Marvel series, that was a big disappointment to me, as an aside. Um, though I've watched the DC ones as well, but they just seem to be more. I was telling somebody this the other day. It's Tony Caravan live show, so this is what you get. I was telling somebody the other day. I said, the difference between Stan Lee and Marvel, they were a little bit darker, and their characters were more authentic. Like, if you like Jessica Jones, I don't know if anybody's seen that. Like, a character like that, she was a hard drinking, she was just one tough character, right? Even like Luke Cage, and those type of Marvel characters. And you would watch them, and they were mostly, while they had all these issues they were dealing with, they were still like, they had this like attitude that just, they didn't, it was, it's like Humphrey Bogart, a good chug of scotch, we'll get that out of the way. And and then they would have victories. It's like every episode, more or less, they have victories. And with me, with DC, and I don't know if you're not into the comic book world, and it's not, or this whole idea. But I watch some of these DC things, or some of these other shows that are like that, because of the popularity of that, there's a lot of series and different things now that they try to copy the concept of the so-called superhero, type of thing. But I find that they're like, they cause more anxiety, than they do escapism. And, when you want entertainment, the idea of, if you're going to sit down and watch a movie, or go to a movie, when in the old days, but now who has to really go? That people have got such big screen TVs, good sound systems. I mean, the movie theater experience. I can't think of the last time I was at a movie theater, but I don't really miss it. So anyway, but the whole idea was escapism. It's entertainment. I want to get out of, I want to go have fun. I want to go see a movie. I want to go have fun. And I don't know if you've noticed this at all. And it was one of the reasons why I got rid of TV too, because it seemed that pop culture just became political. Politics was pop culture. Instead of pop culture should be things like movies, right? Or things like, the mini skirt, you know what I mean? Or whatever, Beanie Babies, I don't know. But, pop culture, it shouldn't be politics 24 hours a day and the cult of personality, right? Where people have a political candidate or some kind of thing, and then they like, that's that. And it's their whole life. And it's like on Twitter, it's like, I said, and I fell into that trap, where I was like doing that and arguing with people, that kind of arguing, online type of stuff. And then I just woke up out of it and I said, what's going on here? There's just too much anger and angst and it causes anxiety. And for what? Right? These people are just messengers for grocery store clerks. The world's run by a corporatocracy, these guys, the puppeteers at the top. They're pulling the strings, right? They're the campaign contributors. They're the ones who put, the slide in all the stuff into the bills in Congress, right? They control, it's the Davos set. It's the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. That's who runs the world. And these other people are just, TV. Remember, the media is global and is part of that corporatocracy puppeteer world. The politicians are just marionettes down here at the bottom. Same with the bureaucrats and the courts and all of that stuff. And it just, it's really absurd. And so to turning it into like sports, that's what it really became. And so what team are you on? Right. And I think even some of them refer to it like that, team this, team that, and it's just campaign contributions to pay for ads on television stations and in newspapers. But in the grand scheme of things, what is it? They're just used car salesmen or pharmaceuticals. What is the corporatocracy? The corporatocracy is big pharma, right? Big tech, that's collecting big data, as I started this episode out with. And of course, the military industrial complex and big ag, right? And so it's all fixed. And so everything is wrong, right? And what you don't know, like the other shirt, I sell those shirts. You go to TonyCaravanLive.com, grab one. They're comfortable. And they just freak people out when people see you wearing them. The spring weather's coming. Get a t-shirt. But it's like, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And that's the thing, and that's something to really think about that. You don't know what you don't know. But there's awful lot of people out there that are just going back and forth with all this stuff day in, day out and living their lives. And like I say, over a course of time, I found myself changing, having an open mind and changing my opinion on these kinds of issues, because I just saw, I just cleared out the clutter, and saw through it and said, hey, you're two sides of the same coin, and it doesn't even matter. That coin is a worthless coin on top of it. It's not even legal tender. So, they're irrelevant and insignificant when it comes to, your life and your happiness, and that you can be happy if you just detach yourself from that world. And getting caught in it, it's like people who have these protest signs, I want this, we need that, change this. It's an exercise in futility. All it is provides the media with free content so they could sell more used cars or more drugs that eventually are going to be, a law firm's going to tell you that they cause some kind of thing. I mean, it would be funny if it wasn't tragic, if you really think about it. And so the country that we used to know is now, I call it the former United States of America. And Western civilization has fallen a long time ago. That's been collapsing for, decades now. And like I said, though, when Rome fell, you still had Italy, right? So it's not like, I'm not one of these like total end of the world, doom and gloom type of people. It just comes time when you have to face reality and then focus more on family, friends, your life, your happiness, right? And not be so caught up in this crazy, sick world of pop culture, of politics, and the cult of personality, and people trying to sell used cars, right? So that's it. That's where my head's at, and that's how I've changed. And so I'm more in. That's why I'm doing live videos now. If you go back to my YouTube channel, uh, which there's links to it on my TonyCaravanLive.com website, and I guess on Facebook I put a link to it too. Or at least you get to my website, which will have a link to go to the Rock Flux through YouTube. Rock Flux. It's one of my another shirt. I just design these shirts. I make them. I buy them. I don't know if anybody else is really buying them. I don't make them in my. I'm goes through a third party, so I'm lucky if I get like a 50 cent or $1 commission or something. But it's a good shirt. If you're gonna wear a t-shirt, you might as well wear something that's like comfortable and maybe thought provoking to somebody. But yeah, so you just change. I think most people change. If you have an open mind, you change, and that's growth. And by being open, sometimes the things that haunt people the most, or frustrate people, or give them that feeling of anxiety or this, that, the other, are because they're too caught up in they too many hangups, as you would say in like the 60s or something. And once you free your mind of that, your life is much better. And it doesn't matter, you could get through anything, whether it's health problems or any kind of problems, because you're not like pigeonholed. You're not caught up in some crazy way of living. And so that's why I've moved into the more authentic thing. I like live because I'll repeat myself. I'll try to explain something and I'll forget. Like yesterday, I for some reason I think of the word hotspot talking about the cell phone. I was like, whatever. And there was another one on one show, maybe a show prior to that. I couldn't think of the word trampoline. It might have been the same show. I was trying to describe, sometimes I get into heavy issues on these shows and you just have to do. I was trying to describe Einstein's theory of gravity, time, space, how, he has this idea that, and you've seen it, that it's like a bowling ball on a mattress, or I said a bowling ball and I was trying to think of the word trampoline, and I was like, it sounds like tambourine or something. But anyway, if you watch that, and I just couldn't, my mind, it was like, I couldn't think of the word trampoline. And so that's another thing I do with these, but who cares? So what was I going to do? It's a live show. So eventually I just give up on it. And, you deal with different things. Sometimes some of these shows are funny, and I have a lot of these like weird, sound effects and different things that I will put on. So besides
Good morning.
These kinds of things, because I've spent my life in radio, so I have all this. I have so much of that stuff. It's ridiculous. I mean, literally thousands and thousands of stuff. And, those things come up in these shows. So this is kind of a reintroduction of Tony Caravan Live for some new audiences, maybe people who haven't seen me in a while, curious, what I look like, where my head's at, and all that sort of thing. But that's it. That's what I am. I'm not really writing a lot of new music right now. I did the book. I'll probably do another book later this year after the gardening season. I think that will be more of, whereas this last book was half flow of consciousness, I think the next one probably will be completely a flow of consciousness type of thing. Which just will get into any kind of autobiographical issues. Like in this particular book here, Like, for example, I describe the, you know, you can see there flow of consciousness, but I actually describe the saga of the medical, you know, my hospital thing where I basically spent seven months in and out of hospitals where I knew, nurses, were more. I knew nurses more than anybody else. They knew me. It was ridiculous. Hey, you're back. But I got through it. I didn't mind it. I didn't really have fear or anything like that. And I trusted the people that I was dealing with, and and fortunately they were good people. So that's about it. That's all I wanted to do. Reintroduce myself to my Facebook audience. Hopefully they allow me to link this video so that it can be watched. Obviously, there's nothing in here that goes against any terms of service. I don't think the corporatocracy is a problem. Like I said, I don't really care about big data and data collection. I think it's become ubiquitous now. And the idea of worrying about big data is kind of foolish. I mean, that's their business model. That's fine with me. I really don't care. So, thanks for watching. I'm going to figure a way, I think, to do this live, maybe simulcast live on Facebook. But if not, I will just include these videos. This is my primary reason for reopening the Facebook account. So you're more likely to just see these kinds of things, a link to these things. And if you want to follow my gardening, that's on Instagram. And there's a link on that through my Facebook page too. Otherwise, the YouTube channel, like I said, this Rock Flux is my YouTube channel, because it's the same. It's the company basically that I've been using. Actually, that book doesn't necessarily have it, but the old logo, you can see it there, Rock Flux. So it's kind of like the company I've had for like 20 years. I set up. It's not like a company. It's just, my company. It's a terminology I used. And that's that. So good seeing you all, even though I haven't seen you. TonyCaravanLive.com. Great solar stuff.com. That's my thing, my latest thing. I'm, trying to get people to have things, not prepping stuff or anything weird like that. Just stuff that will keep you, out of the dark, and keep your quality of life good as we're entering what I say are these tumultuous times where anything's possible. And if you watch, I highly recommend maybe you go back and watch some of my previous videos so you can see some of the topics that I discuss in more in depth, and see where my head's at. And in the future, I'll cover those again, because like I said, there's only so many kinds of people. Human life is not that complex. Even the universe and the earth and all that kind of, because I get into physics and things like that sometimes, it's not as complicated as people think it is. There are certain factors, things like magnetism, theory of gravity and space-time. I believe in the electric universe more so, and plasma more so than Einstein's theory of relativity, which is just a theory. So the idea is that, once you start looking at life, I think the more people try to make things complicated, the more they're just trying to control you or manipulate you. Because life is simple. The only thing you really have to do is eat. You're this bioelectric machine, right? So you eat and drink, and that produces, that maintains your body. Of course, you need shelter, as I say, in case, if you're in an area where the weather is inclement. But that's it. And from there you find happiness. And that's it. And it and the definition of happiness may be different for different people. And like I say, there's different classifications of people. People have different wants, needs, desires in that sense. The word need, maybe I should take out of that, because I don't think you don't really need anything. That's more of the corporatocracy saying, pulling your strings and trying to manipulate and say, oh, you need to buy that $3,000 washer and dryer set instead of the old $300 one that I bought, right? Hey, it washes. I got a washer that washes and a dryer that dries. I paid $300 for my washer. I don't need to have something that's on a commercial for, or in a sitcom or in a movie or on an ad for some kind of laundry detergent. And that doesn't, that's another thing. As you get older, you no longer worry about the material things, or as the image stuff. And especially when when you're confronted, when you're in a hospital bed too, and you're confronted with mortality, you realize there's some certain creature comforts that we all want, but having a thing for the sake of bling bling or a bright shiny object is becomes very insignificant in the grand scheme of things when you look at life and consider that you're only around for so long. So what good is it anyway? I've got everything I need. Get one of my morning show mugs and join me every morning. Cheers. See you soon. I'll be doing this I do it mostly every day. I might take a day off here or there, but I did a show on St. Patrick's Day that was like 3 hours long, but it doesn't exist anymore because I was playing some music, and that's a whole nother thing. They have copyright restrictions, and so that, unless you saw it live, you missed that experience. But that was a lot of fun. And every now and then I do that. I think there still might be a 5-hour one up that I did. That was like just a smoking and drinking session. I don't even know what that was for. I just did it for the hell of it. And that was a trip too. Anyway, take care, peace, and all that stuff. Cheers. Talk to you soon.